Hi, and welcome back to our Advanced Squad Leader tutorial series. We have been handling viewers' requests as of late, and some of our viewers requested a tutorial on the close combat phase in Advanced Squad Leader. There are several aspects to close combat which we will cover in several videos. The first one is the infantry versus infantry close combat. For that, we are going to go back to the Eastern Front and use a 4.68 for the Germans and a 4.47 for the Russians. Now, close combat is initiated during the advanced phase by the moving player. In this phase, let's assume it is the Russian turn, so the 447 squad is going to move into the 468's hex, which in this case is a stone building. The first thing to see is if ambush is possible. If the close combat is going to take place in either woods or a building, then ambush is possible. To see if ambush occurs, each player rolls one die. If either player gets 3 or greater or less than the other player after applying all the modifiers seen in the ambush table below, then he has achieved ambush. For this example, let's assume neither side has achieved ambush. We compare the total firepower of both sides, which is the 4 in both cases, and develop a ratio. In this case, both sides have a firepower of 4, so the ratio is 1 to 1. By checking the close combat table, we see that for a result to occur, there has to be a 5 or less result rolled with 2 dice. Let's use the Russian rolls for examples of what happens and assume the German player rolled a 10 with 2 dice for no effect on the Russians. If the Russian rolls a 6 or higher, nothing happens and squads get placed under a melee counter. If the Russian player rolls a 5, then the German squad is reduced to a half squad and the stack is placed under a melee counter. If the final modified roll is a 4 or less, then the German squad is eliminated. Now, close combat is usually simultaneous, so barring unusual circumstances, like one side getting ambushed, or if one side rolls a 2 or 12, even if the German player had managed to eliminate the Russian squad with a 4 or less on his roll, the Russian squad would have attacked back at full firepower before being removed from the game. If the Russian squad had achieved ambush, then it would attack first with a -1 DRM to its roll. So now, on a 6, the German squad would be reduced and would be eliminated on a 5 or less. Also, it would not attack back before being eliminated. If the German squad had survived the attack after being ambushed, there would have been a +1 DRM to its roll against the Russian. So the Russian squad would have been reduced on a 4 and eliminated on a 3 or less. Now let's put the German piece in several situations which affect close combat. First, let's pin it, assuming that it failed a pin task check during the advanced fire phase. The Russian squad now advances in. There is a +1 modifier to the ambush roll as per our ambush table for the Germans. Now if ambush does not occur, the German squad attacks at half power but defends at full strength. So the Russian would attack at 1 to 1 odds, and the German would attack back at 2 to 4 or 1 to 2 odds. Now let's break the German squad that's involved in close combat with the Russians already. While this is rare, it can happen by a sniper attack or if someone shot into the melee hex on the previous turn. If the good order squad and the broken squad were separated by the black bar in a row house on the bottom floor, then the good order unit could conceivably advance into the hex containing the broken unit because the broken unit would not have been forced to rout. In this case, the good order squad entering the hex would get an ambush attempt versus the broken squad, but the broken squad would not get one back. When broken units are involved in close combat, they defend at full, but are subject to 2 nasty modifiers to the enemy's dice roll. -2 for being broken, and -2 for attempting to withdraw. Now, let's reverse roles in close combat and have the German 468 advance into the Russian hex where the Russians are concealed. The first thing that happens is that we roll for ambush with a -2 dice roll modifier for the Russians for being concealed. Now here's an important note about ambush and concealment. If at least one side in the close combat hex is concealed, there is a roll for ambush no matter what the terrain. Of course, advancing into the open causes loss of concealment, so if the concealed unit advanced into the open, it would lose concealment, and thus it would not cause the ambush roll. In this example, if the Russians were in grain or an orchard, and they or the advancing Germans were concealed somehow, there would be an ambush roll. If they get ambushed, they have the ability to leave the hex or stay, just like any other unit that obtained ambush. Once the ambush is determined, assuming neither side got ambush, then the concealed player has 2 options. He can decide to fight normally, or he can hunker down and not attack. If he attacks, then the 4/7 would be revealed immediately and the attack would occur as normal. If he decided not to attack, he would stay concealed and the German would attack on the 1 to 2 column of the close combat table. The concealed unit only loses concealment if it makes an attack or is reduced. Now, there are several things to finish up close combat between infantry. Leaders can modify both the ambush roll and the ensuing close combat attack using their leadership modifiers. In the attack itself, the leader also adds 1 firepower to the total firepower of its side, and it also modifies the roll by his leadership modifier. Second, you can attempt to capture the enemy squads by adding a +1 modifier and declaring a capture attempt. Inexperienced troops suffer a -1 dice roll modifier when their opponent attempts to capture them. With regards to ambush modifiers, inexperienced and berserk troops are lax, and thus suffer a +1 dice roll modifier to ambush attempts. Counter-exhausted. If a unit is counter-exhausted in close combat, then it will receive a +1 dice roll modifier on the ambush attempt, and it will receive a +1 dice roll modifier in close combat, while its opponent will receive a -1 dice roll modifier during the close combat. As you can see, CX can be pretty bad in close combat. This concludes the first part of Close Combat and Advanced Squad Leader. Our next installment will cover vehicles in close combat versus infantry. If you found this video useful and enjoyable, like us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. You can find all the latest news on this great game at www.theadvancedsquadleaderexperience.com. And for reviews of some of the best tabletop games around, check out our website at www.table-top-war-games.com. Finally, follow us on Facebook at our Facebook page for J&D Hobbies for all the latest releases and news about our store. And like always, thanks for watching, and take care.